Introduce herself almost. We are very pleased, Marisa, that you're here. Marisa and Stephen already made the point, science, science, science. So Marisa is the senior scientific advisor of the scientific committees of the regulatory science strategy at EMA. So what better can be asked than to have her here? The science is driving this process, the process of nanomedicines. And another thing that is important to realize is that Marisa was at the beginning, at the birth of the idea of the biosimilars. The EMA, the first EMA papers on biosimilars, she was one of the drivers there. So she knows what she's talking about when she talks about complex drugs. And I think we all agree that the EU was way ahead of the US in developing this biosimilar concept, and extremely successful if you see how many biosimilars are at the moment on the market in Europe. Well, the title is a little bit out of the scope of this session, but definitely of interest to us. So, Marisa, please take the floor.
Thank you, Dan. And good morning, everyone. For today, I was trying to sort of detach myself from the excellent science which is behind the discussions we had this morning already. I was not here yesterday, but I was told it was extremely good also yesterday. And I made a presentation where you could choose what you want me to speak about. Can I have the next slide, please? Oh, I have, is this one? The green button, okay. Which was this one. As you see here, you have two colors. You have blue and black. And this is the theme I want to touch about. It's an update on where we are. And I had created these slides so to ask you what you want me to speak about. The European Commission activities, i.e. what's going on in Europe, the international landscape, or what is new at the agency. So you could choose, and by raising your hands, I could see who wants what. Now, I was told that this is not possible anymore, so, but still I would like the audience, which is limited so we can make you happy, what you like to dwell more on. Because then I can go very quickly to what you are not interested in or limited interested in, and then concentrate on what you want to see. So what you want to see? Number one, raise hands, please. One, good. Number two, oh, quite a lot. Number three, okay, brilliant. So I will go very quickly to the very first slides, and then we will concentrate on the international landscape. This is what's going on in Europe. We continue investing. And not only we continue investing in nanotechnology, but we start wrapping results. So you have on this side, where is this, the pointer? On this side, you have the latest things coming up, tools for small and medium enterprise to get funded for research projects. And here, you have research projects who have been gone ahead and start delivering results. So Europe is very committed to the field of this enabling technology, which is nanotechnology, including in the area of health products. And as you can see, we started seeing results. Then we have activities going in many directions, also try to bridge between the real fundamental science and what are the needs of society. And here we have the important work which is done by the Joint Research Centers, VISPRA. And here you have an example, it's not of course exhaustive. Here we have sort of addressing the question, what are the regulatory needs? And the other one is how we look into nanotechnology applied to food. Because one interesting aspect of nanotechnology in nowadays science and regulatory science is that really we can learn from different sources. Nanotechnology is a sweeping technology. It's going across everything. It's a little bit like digitalization. It's going across everything. So it's very important not to lose sight of what is going in domains which are different from the one you actually work on. Then we go to the international activities in nanomedicine. Is the one you were more interested in. So I would start with this. You want an update. You don't want to know whatever is going on in the planet. So I think it's worth mentioning the Global Summit, which was given last year, organized by the FDA in Bethesda. And I think at that conference, a lot of progress has been made. Lots of people from all over the world were present. And I leave with a colleague at the FDA to dwell more on the content of it. But clearly, since 2007, 2008, the FDA in the United States has taken quite a stance in supporting this field. And I would say they were able, let's say, to lead in certain discussions, but also to bring along an international community, which is very, very important. Now is the last, the new on the block, the international group, Coalition of Medicine Regulatory Authorities. This is a group which meets rarely along the year, but they have an important function. They look into the strategy for regulatory science, and they actually are, as we speak, considering which are the priority in innovation, which needs further support and which need to be mandated to various groups to generate more science. So the ICMRA itself does not make technical working groups or activities, but indicates what are priorities and which fora can be useful, for example, to address those priorities, be it the ICH, be it the International Pharmaceutical Regulatory Forum, etc. So this is very, very important fact that this group, which comprises regulators from all over the world, decide to look into innovation with a new strategy, and likely or possibly there will be space also for enabling technologies, including nanotechnology. But then maybe you're more interested in knowing about the IPRFG, the group which actually is concretely going into the substance, and they established working groups on various areas, including advanced therapies and nanomedicine. And as you know, CLINAM has a tradition to host the group for the face-to-face meeting, where normally there is the recap of what has been done the year before, and there is a debate, and normally very productive debate, on what should be done next. The group was chaired, this group is the transition of a very established group in the international landscape, which was the International Group of Nanomedicines. This was created in 2009 after a meeting in Washington. There were the agencies involved were Canada, Europe, the regions, Canada, Europe, and United States, and then Australia followed, etc. And then was transitioned in 2015 under the umbrella of this international regulatory group, and was interesting enough, was chaired by Europe, even in the transition. I was chairing personally the group and keeping alive the group all over the years between 2009 and 2015, with all the changes that happened on both sides of the oceans. And then was chaired by Falk Hemmen, which you all know, very active, a very brilliant regulatory scientist. And for the first time, and this is an interesting point I want to make, we had a table with deliverables. So the group decided to have a very operational functioning, and they put on the table what should be done by when. And this was quite interesting, let's say the minimum. The more interesting thing is that then everything has been done. So this International Pharmaceutical Regulatory Working Group, which comprises experts from many regions, actually they meet once a year, but they manage to address all the deliverables, which were really to create the foundation of a formal platform where to agree. So the mapping of the document adopted, and GRC again has done an incredible work on mapping also the terminology which is used in the regulatory landscape. We have to take care of this one, and we are maybe to look at our own website, be company, be regulatory authorities, and try to learn the lesson about the heterogeneity of terminology used. They also published that particular research Then the next deliverables was looking at the published guidance, but also looking at and participating, as you already told, to activities which are highly relevant to the topics. And here you have the meeting which was just mentioned about equivalence of complex drugs in New York. Then we have the meeting of the International Pharmaceutical Federation, again in May this year. And then we were told, but here I speak under control of the FDA colleagues, that there will be a paper on containing specific guidelines for nanotechnology applied products. Health Canada done the job. To make a long story short, we managed to deliver on everything which was agreed, and in time. This is another paper which was developed by the GRC in the wave of these activities, and is the identification of regulatory needs for nanomedicines. We have Susanne Bremer in the audience, so any question, please, because she really is the hand and the brain behind this story, and she will be able to tell you what we need, all regulators in the system. And if you look at the index, it's pretty interesting. I don't know whether you had the chance to look at this document, but I would highly recommend. Again, Japan and the summit. Now, what else is going on? I don't want to be boring because you can read by yourself. So, but there is one thing I want to attract your attention. There was this book on regulatory issues in nanomedicine which has been published and released just earlier this year. And there is quite with some colleagues you know very well, myself, Eman Falk, Ruben Peter, Dolores Hernan, we wrote down this article, this chapter together, and there is one question which I give to all of you: do we need a definition? There is no other title. The title is, do we need the definition? And the response is, maybe we don't need the definition. We need to speak about the technology as we speak about DNA recombinant. And then this applies to everything, which is relevant. Now, what is new? Well, the good news is that there is a lot of clinical research ongoing. So it's not true that nanotechnology is only in the labs. It's not true that we are still at the beginning of the story, because a number of authorities has authorized trials. This is taken from, oops, no, how do you go back here? There, that's it. Here, this is data taken from clinicaltrial.gov, and we look only at some terms: liposomal, polymers, colloidal dispersions, and nanoparticles. So we were able to look at the recruiting trials only for these three categories. It was impossible to make the same work when the term in the title or in the other parts of the trial was nanoparticles. You have the most incredible variety in the clinicaltrial.gov. You have unknown, you have closed, you have active but not recruiting. Recruiting is a really variety, but it's a big number. It's a big, I was struck by the big number. And of course, we have successful liposomal formulation, which goes through, and again, polymers. Interesting, the polymers is the first category which is coming up to surface as a sort of application of nanotechnology for pharmaceutical after the success, we have to say, of the liposomal formulations. Then I was a little bit, this I made in April, say, look, let's see what's going on in Europe. So I asked my colleagues from the EUDATC to look at these terms, because again, one definition will not capture anything. If I say, can you look for nanomedicines, the result would be 0, okay? So we had to look at the specific kind of application of nanotechnology producing defined types of products. And what was shocking is that more than 800. This is the new trials every year. So there are more than 800 trials, and the proportion of double-blind randomized was penible. I can tell you, there were such low numbers of double-blind randomized, which is the golden standards for safety and efficacy, was minimal. And the other interesting findings of this research is what the big trials, even not double-blind, but just randomized big trial of a certain substance, were done by industry. There was a limited number of single-arm or observational trials conducted by academia groups. And this leads us to the last part of my speech. Yeah, I'm late already. And I tell you what is new in the European Medicine Agency. In March this year, our management board, which consists of all member states of the European Union, adopted a framework for interaction with academia. So academia is, as of the end of March, an official stakeholder of the European Medicine Agency and therefore of the network. What does it mean? It means that all interaction with academia we had in the past are part of a bigger picture, and that means that we have now identified specific way of interacting with academia at the European level. It's not going to search the individual specialist in the member states. We used to do this already forever, since ever, because either through the committees, members of the committees, members of the management board, we could say, we could identify in PubMed the brilliant Dutch specialist in NCBD and say, okay, can we invite this person, and the committee will agree. So we have a mechanism in place whereby we can contact academics from all over the world. But this one is different. This is first, look in which ways, additional ways than individual specialists and experts, or lend society to contact for guidelines, in which way we can engage with academia. Gives us objectives on this engagement and complements another initiative which is brand new, has been adopted in October last year. How do we do this at the local level in Europe? So I think it's relevant for all of you here. So double hedge, on one side, how we enjoy the know-how of the academic planet and how we give a service to the academic planet. So these are the objectives of the framework. You can read for yourself, but oops. What happened? Let's see whether, I want to go to the next one.
This with the big one.
Okay, sorry. So interesting here, first of all, raise awareness, because as academia is so in love for their brilliant invention and discoveries, for the perspective of a large number of publications and eventually even an IP in the horizon, that very often are too busy to do that, to think, yes, but this will translate in anything that can be used in a large scale. Because even having an IP, if it cannot be used, is an IP, costs a lot of money, you put it there and nothing happens, maybe for 20, 30 years. And when it happens, it's too late for you. So first of all, can we raise the awareness on what really you have to think about when you develop something so important and so new? Then we really want to promote the translational research. We will do this at the European level, dealing with the European infrastructure, the European networks, because of course we have to go across the entire scope of the European Union. And then we will see how the academia works together with patients, with us, to progress. But then, of course, we are selfish a little bit. We want to have the best academic experts for us, to work with us when something difficult comes along. But also, we intend to engage actively in regulatory science with the research groups. Now, these are the strategy big blocks. So inform, consult. We intend to foster the consultation with the academic network in Europe in a much more systematic way about guidelines and policies. We want to involve them in decision making, and we want to cooperate in research. So this is, I think, across all activities of the European Medicine Agency. That means across all the 28 member states and the 42 national regulatory authorities. The other bit is the EU Innovation Network. This is the latest baby. This is something which started in 2011 on an informal basis, started with 4 member states. We thought we have to have a common approach because Europe is big and we have so many opportunities. We also published some papers in a report here where we could demonstrate that a large proportion of innovative medicines in the last 10 years was actually developed in industry, in academia, up to a certain point. And then, of course, the ownership of the results was going with the industry, which is the arm of the society, which has the infrastructure, the know-how to bring drugs to everywhere, in general. Now, so we had a specific mandate, but in a nutshell, you can read on yourself. The idea is that this network, which is composed at the moment of 21 agencies from all over Europe, is created by active willingness of each and every heads of agency to have a specific contact person, office in the agency which address questions from innovators. Innovators which can be an hospital department, can be a small company, can be an academic network, okay? And this is the spectrum of functioning. And this I show to you because in bold you will see areas which show that this network has a specific experience and expertise in advanced therapies. 90% of the 21 are regularly exposed to discussion with innovators with ATMPs. 95%, so only one group, one office, have not seen combined products and borderline products. Borderline with devices, combined with devices, borderline with food, borderline with cosmetics. 50%, 1 out of 2, has specific competence on medical devices in-house. So these are offices belonging to agency who can cover both device and pharmaceuticals, and this is particularly important for this audience. And of course, methods and tools for drug development. And if you see, 100% everyone has open door with academia, small and medium enterprises, startups, et cetera, et cetera. You can read for yourself. If you look at the focus, it's extraordinary how much this network can offer in quality, preclinical, clinical. Everyone looks into that. But also, 90% of them can give you advice on your production process. This is an informal advice, it's an orientation. It's not a scientific advice, the formal one, whereby you sort of make an agreement with the regulatory authorities where you have to go. It's just to give an orientation, what could be the issues, bottlenecks, and how you might resolve them, and you have to do your homework later on. But it's particularly important, production process, pharmacovigilance. Some of them even have enough resources to help with the reduction of documents for subsequent steps in the regulatory environment. And of course, a growing number looks at the economics of what you're doing, okay? Is this something which can be attractive for payers, for HTA? Not compelling, not agreed, but sort of indications on what you can have. And these are the services which this network offers. Again, direct answers for simple questions, orientation to the right competence inside the agency, meeting for most innovative, to have a face-to-face exchange, and in particular, when it comes, for example, to us, to the Innovation Task Force, which we have at the agency, we use the expertise from everywhere, from all working parties, from all member states, just to give the service. And then, okay, additional non-specifically tailored things to individual innovators. So this is what we want to do with the two strategies, the EU level and framework for EU learned societies and academic groups, and the local national competent authority level of entry. So when something is new for one competent authority, this is shared with all the others. So you have a priming and preparing of the European context for your innovation. Last but not least, the regulation on medical devices. What is new at the agency, but I would say what is new in Europe. This regulation has been adopted, published on the 5th of May, and will enter into force in 3 years. is a new regulation which will sweep away the old way of looking at medical devices. There's a lot of work which is already ongoing in the device quarters, but also there is a specific provisions for nano, and this we have to keep an eye, because nano for the first time, nanotechnology and nanoparticles for the first time, nanomaterials for the first time are spelled out in legislation, which is quite interesting. Maybe because innovation in nanotechnology, when it comes to health products, has generated really a large amount of products which are really on the border. Are they medical devices? Maybe yes, maybe not. And therefore, the European Medicines Agency, as a wave of new things to be done on top of Brexit, we have the preparation for this new legislation, which will come into force in 3 years. We have to find the new experts, we have to find the new processes, we have to look how do we coordinate with the medical device, with the European Commission, with the notified bodies, with the authorities in charge of supervising notified bodies, with the future new group coming, which is a committee on a coordinating committee for medical devices. So, because the legislation says the agency or the national competent authorities, which is the same thing, will be consulted on borderline products. Actually, the national authorities will have the decisions on whether a product is a medicine or not, but try to harmonize across Europe. There will be the possibility of consulting either the agency or other authorities on the classification, which is a big thing. Then the agency and the other authorities will be consulted on substances systemically absorbed in the human body, which is a lot of new nanotech-based health products. And this is completely new. But also, this is not new. Medical devices incorporating ancillary substances, substances which are there to help but not fundamental. And again, this is new. There will be consultation of the agency in case of serious accidents with any medical device which contains medicinal products. So as you can see, is an entire set of a new procedure we have to put in place. So I think it was not too boring. I try not to, but I'm open to any question. And thank you, Chair, for not stopping me.
Thank you. Thank you, Marisa. Indeed, a more global view, European but also more global view, on what's going on in the nanomedicines world. On the regulatory side, it's clear that a lot is going on. Quite a few questions that pop up. But first, the audience. We can also discuss that later in the debate. Are there any questions from your side? Stefan?
That's good. Anyway, regulators are not monsters, are human beings like me. So even though it's so complex from the outside, in reality, everything goes through people. It's very, very simple.
Thank you for notifying us.
Thank you, Marisa, for this very nice overview and what's going on. As you said, if showing good slides, there is the risk that you get questions on it, as you did before. My question is first, do you think this kind of collaboration with academia, is it new for the agency, or is it something which has a completely different flavor? And just a second afterwards, we are in Switzerland, and Switzerland is a major player in this field. What do you think is going on for that kind of European nations, which are not member states?
Thank you for the question. When it comes to who is there for the interaction with academia, as I showed in one of the slides, is a matrix across the entire agency. And depending on what is the issue at stake, what is the situation, we will be able to involve everyone, including the scientific committees, as we did in the past whenever needed. When it comes to the face, which will be on the board, on the academy office, who is dealing with academics, of course, we have recruited academics. We have recruited 2 new academics since a couple of years, because I will show in another speech, to achieve an agreement of all member states, all national competent authorities, on launching a framework on interaction with academia, it took 3 years of work. So behind the scene, we have academics who join us, people like me, a little bit maverick, but also lawyers, people involved in communication, etc. So we all work together to ensure that we can do something which is easy for academia. And yeah, when it comes to third countries, which is a variety of third countries, including Switzerland, I think that science has no boundaries. And of course, whereas the focus is on the European learned society and European infrastructures and networks, I don't think Switzerland acts on its own like an island. It's part of many of these initiatives, so I don't think there is a problem. I think it's open to science, and therefore science is collaborative anyway.
I think because of the time we have to move on.
Thank you.
You used the word maverick.
Yeah.
Keep on doing that.